everyone. Episode 2 of the Women's Soccer Show. Helen here and over in New York City.
New York City, mate.
No.
No.
No. No.
Was that not good?
Losing our listeners, Sarah.
I feel like I can only say British, like I can only speak in a British accent if I try to say like very stereotypical British things.
So obviously this isn't the first time we've got together today, because earlier on we spoke before the Chelsea Manchester United game, and here is our pre-match coverage. You're gonna have to accept, guys, we've got 10 minutes, so we're not promising this is going to be the best piece of analysis you've ever heard. We just kind of wanted it to be real, you know. So you just said to me just now you have one note on the lineup. What is your one note on the lineup?
My one note on the lineup for the team that I am rooting for is put Tobin in. That's my one note.
Thank you so much for your contribution, Sarah. We'll see you after the game.
I don't think you could get that anywhere else. I don't think anybody else really has that opinion or would say that. I'm sure she'll come in at some point off the bench. The cool thing is when you look at both of these lineups and you look at both of the benches, like the benches are stacked. So
I know
we will be seeing changes throughout the game, which is going to make it even more fun because it's going to be a bit of a strategic battle between the coaches as well.
A few little points I wanted to make, like not surprised at all, but really pleased to see Fran Kirby starting again after last week's amazing game that she had. Not so pleased to see England on the bench. I do think Beth England has world-class quality and was really starting to prove herself, but what do you do when you're like in the position of Hayes and you've got to choose between like Sam Kerr, I guess to a certain extent Pernille Harder, but they're kind of playing in a kind of more attacking midfield, like centre forward position, so she's not really in the mix on that. And then Beth England, so I don't envy her at all. And then the other thing I wanted to note is it looks like they're playing Erin Cuthbert in a higher position today. And I like seeing Erin Cuthbert play as a more of attacking, an attacking midfielder. So I'm pleased that she's not playing in that deep role that she played in against Reading. And then not shocked, but was shocked not to see her starting against Reading, G in the lock starting lineup. G wasn't playing at all. She came in like the 60th minute, I think, against Reading, but maybe they were just resting her. No major surprises for me except for Tobin Heath on the Man United side, but quite a few surprises on the Chelsea side for me.
I think that's what happens when you just have a wealth of attacking players who are all top quality and could start and would be starting on literally any other team in this league. Yeah. I love that the Kirby connection is back in the lineup. I think we saw that starting to be born in the game last week versus Reading. And I actually think that it's going to be really fun to see them just develop that connection.
I can't wait to see Fran Kirby being talked about again as one of the best players in the world, because back when I first got into women's football big style, Fran Kirby was the number one player that everyone spoke about, especially when it came to England. And then obviously lots has happened, but it's so good seeing her just dominate. And I think that she'll dominate again today against Man United, hopefully for her sake. Now on to the predictions, because we have totally opposing positions on this, but we're just going to go there. And we actually talked a little bit about maybe having a bit of a forfeit if it doesn't go well, just for this one game alone. So I genuinely think Chelsea will win this quite comfortably. So
are you backing away from the 3-0?
I'm sorry. Are we being precise suddenly? Like, is this something we have to do?
Wait, not with our bet, but you can make your prediction.
I'm making a prediction. I'm saying 3-0 to Chelsea. Okay. And yeah, I think Chelsea will win it. Oh God, I'm so nervous. I'm willing to go there. And I've given Sarah forfeit 2 that we won't talk about, but it's probably going to happen. So this is so exciting. What is your prediction, Sarah?
First, I just want to clarify, because that might be a British vernacular. I've never heard a forfeit. For anybody in the US listening who also didn't understand that, we've made a bet. We've made a wager, and we have each decided what the other person has to do if she loses.
I love how we always learn from each other. I didn't know forfeit wasn't a thing in America.
It might be. I mean, I know forfeit I've only heard used in terms of like a game that we forfeited, never in terms of a bet. My prediction is Manchester United 2-1.
So what's great, what's so exciting is I can't wait for us to talk about this later, because we come into this so opposing to each other in terms of like our thoughts on how the game's going to go. I can't wait to talk to you about the Hayes versus Stoney like game plan, how they're going to go into it, counter attacking. Are they going to go in soft? Are they going to have a first really solid 20 minutes really going for it? Are they going to like a poker player and they start to like work each other out as the game goes on? The final question before we go to kickoff is this one of the top 3 title deciders, this game?
I don't think so. I don't think
thanks for ruining the hype.
This game is not going to be a deciding factor in it, simply because I think there's enough games left in the season and enough competitive teams that can beat either of these teams, that I don't think this game alone will be a deciding factor, but this is still a big game.
Well, let's go over to kickoff and I'll talk to you after the game.
Let's go United!
Hayes versus Stoney, Chelsea versus Man U. Can't wait. I'll speak to you afterwards. We're back. We've finished the game. We've had a little break. You've been out into the mean streets of New York City. I have been to Asda, but let's talk about the game of the weekend. The most important game, first of all. Those 3 points have changed everything. So let's talk about it. First half, what did you make of the performances?
Well, first I want to say that if I sound upset, it's because I am. I'm not going to lie. I'm just going to put that out there. The first half, it was very clear within the first 5 minutes that Chelsea came out strongest. They were the better side that half. They came out strong and they just continued that trend. Within the first 5 minutes, it seemed like they'd cracked the United defense. Sam Kerr and Frank Kirby specifically had basically already figured out that if they play a little 1-2 combination and split the center backs, they would get into behind the defense. They had a few missed opportunities that could have put Chelsea up really quickly in the first 5 minutes.
But they didn't. Sarah and I had a bit of a debate over this. I said, like, what is Sam Kerr doing? And essentially you were like, well, creating everything. And I was like, okay, yeah, I hear you. But as the striker, you know, she's got to put those things away. If you're a striker and you get 1v1 opportunity against a team at the level that Man United are at, you've got to put that away. And if you don't put that one away, you've got to put the next one away.
I do have a soft spot for Sam Kerr, so I'm going to try to be very objective here. You know, Sam Kerr is a player who I am never worried about her putting away opportunities. And I was sitting there thinking, as somebody who was rooting for United, you know what? It doesn't really matter that she missed this one or that one or even the third one. If we don't solve this problem, she will put one away.
So, you know, putting it in perspective just now, because I think in those big games, in those big match moments, you know, I think back to the Manchester City game, which was the opening game, the Community Shield game. Sam didn't have the greatest performance, but actually, having just looked it up, Sam Kerr, WSL this season, 10 matches, 7 goals, 2 assists. Pernille Harder, 10 matches, 3 goals, 2 assists. And Beth England, 10 matches, 3 goals, 2 assists. But actually, like, for a team out of the 3, you know, out and out well-known strikers within that squad, she's actually got a really good goal to game ratio, right?
I agree. You do bring up an argument that has been used against Sam Kerr a couple of times that I don't personally agree with, but I would love to hear your perspective on it, having kind of brought that up in relation to this game, which could be deemed a very important game. To some people, this was the title decider. It's been said about Sam Kerr, based on a couple of World Cup performances and also potentially the NWSL finals or semifinals, that she doesn't show up in big games. I take personal offense to that, but I'm not going to. What do you make of that, having brought that up about this game?
I covered the Arsenal-Chelsea game last January of 2020. This is how quickly the last year has gone in Corona. But I was at Boreham Wood for that Chelsea absolute domination over Arsenal, which was supposedly going to be a tight game. And it was one of Sam's first games in England. And if I recall, it was her first goal in a Chelsea shirt. I'm not going to sit here and pull up stats on every big game that she's ever played or what would be deemed as a big game that she's played. At the end of the day, when you're playing in the WSL, it's about turning up every week. And whether you get a hat trick against Bristol City and don't score against, Man United or Arsenal, it's about being present in those games. And was Sam Kerr present today? Hell yeah. Only comment / criticism I'd make is, if you're a striker at this level, you got to score most of them. You get a 1v1, it's got to be on target.
What is not said about Sam Kerr enough, an incredible team player. And even with that, she still leads the team in goals.
My one comment about the first half, Man United have a real knack of holding on for dear life against these top teams like they did against Manchester City, and taking those learnings in at half time and then really, really dominating passages of play after that. And I kept saying to you, if Kerr doesn't put one of these away or doesn't put a number of these away and they don't go in with a comfortable cushion, then Man U will learn from this, because that's what they do and that's what Casey Stoney does. And evidently when Casey talks, they listen, because they are able to change the way that they play in a 15-minute halftime window. Like, they evidently go away and they come out with a completely different game plan. Whole first half, you and I were going, Tobin Heath, what's going on with Tobin Heath? And there's a little part of me that's like, is this part of the Casey game plan?
Yeah. It became clear more in the middle or end of the second half that she had her tennis shoes on, or what you call trainers, I believe.
Tennis shoes? She's not playing tennis.
Sneakers, whatever you want to call them.
For God's sake. What the heck is tennis shoes?
My friend was making fun of me the other day because I was on the phone with her and I was like, well, can we three-way Hannah in? And she was like, three-way? Like, nobody said that since 2003 in Mean Girls. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, that's how you dial a third person in. And she's like, literally nobody says that, Grandma. Yes. Now where did my brain go? Well, Chelsea obviously broke down Manchester United's defense pretty early on, and it was clear on the United side that they were having a little bit of a harder time breaking down really how to get behind the back line of Chelsea's back four. United's defense fell apart on a corner kick, conceded a goal that frankly was a great goal. However, you have to look at United's defense and look at where their defenders were sitting.
They had 3 opportunities to clear it, didn't they? Because first one came in, cleared at the near post, but not far enough. Second one hit the post, and then Pernille Harder put the third one in the back of the net.
When the ball bounced to her, if you freeze frame it in that moment, you see that you have 2 United defenders on the goal line behind Mary Earps, and nobody is marking the players in the box, so nobody is on Pernille Harder. She's wide open, one times it in.
What do you think Casey Stoney said at halftime to the players?
Listen, I can't get inside the most beautiful, brilliant mind in football. I just can't do it. What do I think that Casey Stoney said? Frankly, I don't know. That's something that I was a little confused about, because I expected United to come out in the second half really strong with a clear game plan of how they were going to at least be moving the ball around the field. And I didn't see anything different when they came out. I didn't even see them attempt to execute anything different, at least for the first 10, 15 minutes, obviously before Lauren James got subbed on. So I really don't know what Casey Stoney said at halftime. Perhaps it was something more related to energy and mentality and, just keep at it and it'll come.
We talk about Casey Stoney tactics all the time. And I think it was mentioned, so I don't think that I'm some sort of genius, but just going back to the Tobin Heath thing, there's rumour that she knew the entire time that Tobin Heath was injured, but she put her on the bench for the game to sort of throw Emma Hayes off, because obviously Emma Hayes is thinking, why is Tobin Heath not playing? Why is Tobin Heath on the bench? Do I need to prepare my hand for when she plays her hand, aka Tobin Heath? I actually think it's a stroke of genius to have a player on the bench that's she wasn't going to utilise or going to be able to utilise. And I think obviously that just tells you the sort of mind of Casey Stoney. But a little bit maybe about the tactical nuances that she was maybe saying in that dressing room at halftime. And I completely agree with you. I just think come out with more energy in the second half. Before we move on to what happened in the second half, was the Hansen goal offside in your opinion?
Well, when that happened, I yelled at the top of my lungs, bullshit, at the TV. Might have woken my neighbors. I was livid. I did not think it was offside. They did replay it, but like you said, the angle wasn't good. It was kind of like off. You couldn't see straight down the back line. The angle they showed made it seem like it was a quarter of a step maybe offside, but I still didn't believe it. I think it was a goal.
I think it was Sian Massey on that line as well. Sian Massey being one of the best lineswomen. She does the Premier League, like she does it under the most intense pressure. And she's genuinely seen as one of the best lines people around. So let's skip to the 55th minute of the game when Casey makes I think, a massive decision, which is to bring off World Cup winner Kristen Press and bring on England junior Lauren James.
Lauren James played absolutely brilliantly. She came on, she held the ball up top, which is what United needed at the time, because they couldn't manage to hold the ball in the midfield, which is something that we'll get into. After holding the ball, which allowed the rest of the midfield and the rest of her team to join her in the attacking third, she was then able to play combination passes off of her teammates, which is what led to that brilliant goal. It was a beautiful combination play, but at the end of the day, it was also a gorgeous finish by her. And to do that within the first 10 minutes of coming onto a game, in that big of a game, it's fantastic.
She obviously collects the ball in the midfield, but for me, this is an error on G's part. G does what I think is the right thing to do. Lauren James collects the ball in the midfield 40 yards out, so like not in a threatening area. G just sort of parries her. I cannot believe a player of G standard allows Lauren James to turn on her. She catches G completely flat-footed, but the goal itself is magical, not taking anything away from it. But to go back to that first initial moment, I just think G's just not quite quick enough, not sharp enough, and you just can't be turned by a player that easily.
I think people are going to get sick of me talking about Casey Stoney, but credit to Casey Stoney for making that change. United, the first 15 minutes of the second half, or the first 10, there was a lull. No team was really taking control. Yeah. And Casey Stoney basically said, we need something different. We need some energy change, or we just need a different dimension in this game, or maybe both. And that's what Lauren James provided. But absolute mistake to not think that a team like Chelsea would just allow that to happen and stay flat-footed. The fact that they didn't seem to anticipate Chelsea coming back strong, I'm sure they did, but the way they were playing, how it looked, it did not look like as a team, the collective mentality was, okay, refocus. Yeah. They're coming strong.
The worst thing was that they had their warning shot, because the first passage of play after 1-1 was a deflected ball into a completely wide open Sam Kerr, who blasts the ball directly at Mary Earps, and Mary Earps is able to make that save. That's your warning shot. Okay, let's not let this slip. Let's build on our equalizing goal here. And it was actually only 4 minutes later that the error happened. So the thing with Chelsea is that obviously they pass the ball through the midfield, they pass the ball down the wings, they often create from corners and stuff. The assist for this goal was, drumroll everybody, Berger. So the Chelsea goalkeeper assisted the goal, and it just came from a long over the top. It just fell into that perfect sweet spot 25 yards out. But Fran Kirby is just so speedy that she just overtook everybody. And it was unbelievable. In fact, the commentary team are literally like, so, I had a Sunday roast earlier. Oh my God, there's a goal. It was like that sort of moment where it was just so unexpected. It came from the goalkeeper, and it was just a lapse in concentration. And part of me wonders if Man United had just not prepared themselves for the fact that Chelsea would sometimes do the over the top. Like Man City rarely do that long Roebuck over the top ball. They'll always pass it through the midfield. But Chelsea sometimes will just go bish, bash, bosh over the top.
You cannot let the ball bounce. It's the same as letting a fast player turn on you. You need to step to the ball, because the moment you don't step, the moment that ball bounces, it becomes a foot race. And when it's a foot race, you're going to lose. And that's what we saw happen. That's it's not soccer 101. I don't want to, that sounds rude to say it's like a basics of soccer. Credit to Chelsea's midfield. This game, I think, was won in the central midfield battle because Manchester United couldn't play through their central midfield. They had to go up the sides or they had to serve a long ball to their forwards. Chelsea completely shut down the midfield, and credit to them for winning that battle.
So moving on to another team that's in that top three window or hoping to be in that Champions League spot come the end of the season. Arsenal women will be super disappointed after today's fixture. Why are you dancing? This is not cool.
Well, Arsenal's my squad.
Yeah, I'm about to talk about how they didn't win their game. So obviously the game finished today 1-1 between Arsenal and Reading. What did you kind of make of it? What do you think Arsenal's chances are of remaining in the top three come the end of the season, just based on how well Man United are doing?
I think that severely hurts their chances of staying in the top three or ending in the top three. And it makes me, and I think everybody, wonder what is next for Vivianne Miedema.
Oh, we're going there. Yeah, you have to say it. And rumors are rife at the moment about a move to the big boys over in France.
I hesitate to say this because it's completely baseless. Like it's not based in any facts. It's purely me watching an Arsenal game, staring at her and trying to read into some body language of like, are you happy here or are you not happy here?
If there's nothing there.
Obviously, when this news, the rumors, sorry, it's not news yet. When these rumors started flying, I started thinking, you know what, I knew it, because this whole time, and not just when the rumors started flying, I have thought that she seemed frustrated this season.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. I think that Arsenal's underperforming for the talent that they have on their team. So understandable.
Some of the best players in the world play for Arsenal. I don't think there's any doubting it. Played 11, won 7, drawn 2, lost 2. And this isn't the first season now. I say this, and I think they won the league 2 years ago. But this is, the last 2 years have really kind of catapulted women's football into a new realm. And I do just wonder whether he's the right guy to take them forward now, whether this is kind of coming to the end of his time with Arsenal. Here's how the league table is looking now. Chelsea have leapfrogged Manchester United, and they have a game in hand. Manchester City also have a game in hand on the guys above them. So if Manchester City win that game, they will go into third place.
The next few weeks are going to be very telling and very exciting. So
100%. Let's go to the rest of the world. Rest of the world. We need to get a theme tune. Rest of the world. Here we go.
I think you should record some music on the piano and sing to it, and that can be the theme song for the rest of the world roundup.
You do the piano and I'll do the singing.
No.
Busted.
I would sing it if you played the piano.
Oh, deal. Rest of the world.
No, I would sing it.
I know, but I just feel like I wanted to have my little audition. Is that a problem?
All right. Moving over to Spain, Atletico Madrid dominated the Supercopa Final against Levante, winning 3-0 in normal time. The first goal came after 18 minutes, where Levante goalkeeper Padaluta let a ball slip through her legs for 1-0. Simple shot from Castellanos, which should have been saved, frankly. It was 2-0 within minutes, and in the 22nd, the incredibly talented new signing Nchout, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, scored a tap-in, but the goal really belonged to Da Silva, who streamed down the left-hand side, took on a player in the box, and passed it right to Nchout for the tap-in. Nchout, the new Cameroonian signing, made it 3-0 with that goal to take Atletico on to a comfortable Supercopa win. In other news, so amazing to see Hedvig Lindell back in goal for Madrid, one of the greatest goalkeepers of all time, so it's so amazing to see her back.
Hell yes, it is. In Serie A, it's throwing out some surprises, but it's business as usual for Juventus, who've made it 11 out of 11 wins so far. Bloody hell. Just shows the massive cosmic gaps between women's teams, at elite level. Juventus are walking it so far. However, the every person's team, and I've mentioned them a million times, are definitely Sassuolo, and they are third in the table and 8th in the men's league table as well. So both their teams are in the top division and smashing it out the park. The women's team won 3-0 on Saturday the 16th of Jan, and they've only lost 2 games this season. Milan sit in second, not a huge surprise, but still they're doing really well. They've only lost 1 fixture out of their 11 this season. And this season in Serie A, it's actually becoming one to watch if you guys can catch up with it over on socials.
We will post links whenever we can. I see some links coming across my socials for where to watch Serie A, so maybe we can start posting those, Helen.
100% agree.
Yeah. All right, we are moving over in La Liga Primera División. Barcelona have also made it 11 out of 11 and sit top of the table with 3 games in hand. We just talked about games in hand, so everybody knows what that means over here in the U.S. now. We didn't know how it was going to go this season for brand new Real Madrid, but they have made their mark. They sit second, having lost 3 games with 14 games played. Those 3 games came early in the season when they were trying to find their feet as well. Aslani has been absolutely on fire, as we expected, with 9 goals so far this season. Levante have had a brilliant season so far and sit in third, made it to the Supercopa final, as we just talked about earlier, and have the league's top scorer in their ranks, the 28-year-old Esther Gonzalez. 14 goals in 14 games for a team we did not expect to see in the mix for the title. Mind you, it looks like this year it could go to Barca already.
Yeah, Barca are walking at the moment. In a shocking twist, PSG are top of the French First Division. I don't say this very often, guys, so suck it in. And they finally cracked the code against Lyon. They meet Lyon all the time because they always end up in finals against each other, and they've never quite done it. But they have done it this season. They beat Lyon 1-0, which means Lyon sit in second at the moment, and they will not be happy about that. So matches played 11, and PSG have won 11, and Lyon have only won 10. Pathetic. Only won 10 out of 11. That league is quickly becoming a 2-man race. And that's really exciting because obviously for so long now, it's just been such an easy league for Lyon to dominate. Maybe Lyon need to sign a young elite striker at some point just to catch up and start playing for the title. Oh, bye, Viv. See you soon.
Don't do it.
It always does feel a bit, just on that really quickly before we move on to our pals over in America, it always does feel a little bit like a bit gut-wrenching when you hear a player has gone to Lyon, because you're just a bit like, go and walk everything, but you just kind of think like you're just going to go to games every weekend, it's basically like at a local park and play someone, win like 20-0.
It's such an interesting dynamic that I don't think you find in any other sport or any other league, that there's this team that's so dominant and all of these top players go and they play there. But the team itself, once you end up at that team, you're going to have the best training and you're going to train against your teammates who are also some of the best players. But the games themselves aren't going to be as competitive. And it's such a just interesting, new, strange dynamic that I'm glad they're being challenged, and hopefully that trend continues and we can do away with teams that aren't being challenged on a game-to-game basis.
Totally. And it surprises me because when you go to Lyon games, obviously pre-COVID, they get like 20,000 fans going to watch some of their games. And you do just wonder if other clubs in France, that are, the Bordeaux's of this world, that are like decent French teams, are going, they've built this women's team that, cost them £6 million a year to maintain, which is nothing in footballer terms. Like, we could create that, and then we could have them in this French league playing up against each other. And then it's 3 teams in the mix, it's PSG, Lyon and us, or it's PSG, Lyon and 3 or 4 other clubs. And then that French league suddenly becomes the one to watch. It becomes the WSL, becomes the one where Pernille Harder goes to and Sam Kerr goes to. And it feels so easy and obvious to me that other men's teams in the French, like League One, should be looking at this and thinking, this is an opportunity, right? But let's continue living our lives in the shadows and move on to the NWSL.
So moving into the NWSL draft, we are just going to go through some notable picks and trends, I guess, if you will, that I want to point out about the NWSL draft. While Helen sits there and eats her Cadbury.
I'm having a Freddo. Is there a problem?
Number 1, Emily Fox went number 1. She is the first Tar Heel to go number 1 since Crystal Dunn went number 1 in 2014 to the Washington Spirit. She's also the first number 1 draft pick not from Stanford since Rose Lavelle in 2017. So I bring this up because U.S. college soccer has long been dominated by UNC Tar Heels until about 10 years ago, and Stanford came really strong onto the scene. And there's obviously other big players, UCLA. I'm not going to keep naming schools because I understand somebody will be listening to this and feel bad that I left their school out. But this is notable simply because Stanford has been a dominating force in being a feeder to the U.S. national team for the past 5 years, if you will. UNC always has, but it's very interesting to see UNC almost secure that place back. Simply bragging rights, I don't believe that this entirely means anything for college or who will win the national title, for the record. However, speaking of colleges and trends and drafts, there were 5 universities in the US that got their first ever draft selection. I'll run through them, but most importantly, I think that this is great to note and bring to light because it really speaks to what the NWSL is doing, not only in their expansion teams, but also in the talent that they're looking at. In the US, a lot of opportunities are given to players coming from top colleges and top universities. And to see players coming from what are still top universities, but maybe not the big 5, it's a fantastic outlook for players coming up to know that opportunities are now being granted, and more opportunities, I should say, are being granted to players in universities who might be playing in conferences other than Pac-12, Big Ten, ACC, and those notable conferences, if you will. So a couple heartwarming stories about these players who were selected from schools and were the school's first ever NWSL draft selection. Most notably, Amina Ekik from University of Louisville was selected by Louisville in the first round as the number 5 pick overall. We love to see a hometown girl. Love to see a hometown girl playing for her hometown club. So that's going to be really exciting. I think it was a great pick for Louisville overall in terms of soccer and strategy. It was also, frankly, a great marketing tactic. UNC Wilmington had 2 players drafted, and Kansas State also drafted by Kansas City, Brooklyn Entz. So hometown girl who played for Kansas State is now getting to play for Kansas City, formerly known as the Utah Royals. So some pretty exciting storylines right there.
I really loved seeing all of the superstars of American football coming out and saying that it's not the end of the world if you didn't get drafted. And like one that really stood out to me was Mallory Pugh came out and said it was a picture of, like, you'd know all of them, basically US women's national team players, and it was like all of them standing in like a smiling pose, and she said underneath the picture, swipe left for the no draft class, and then it's her and Lindsay Horan, and they both stood there smiling next to each other. And I just thought, for anyone out there that's like been crying themselves to sleep every night since the draft because they saw that as their big opportunity to like break in, it's not the end of the road. And like 2 absolute superstars have kind of proved that. We do want to talk at some point, but maybe not in this episode, about the NWSL and maybe the struggles they're going to face as a result of other leagues and as a result of COVID, because obviously it's massively affected them post Challenge Cup, really. But for the moment, and kind of on that note, massive signing from the NWSL to England in the last week. Do you want to talk about how you feel about that?
I was going to ask you how I feel about that. Or how you feel about that, sorry. Abby Dahlkomper, as we know, signed with Manchester City. She will join Sam Mewis and Rose Lavelle, her U.S. women's national team teammates, to play for Manchester City. Manchester City just going out there and buying all of the talent. this is going to be huge. I think there's two pieces of this that we get to talk about. Number one is what it means for Man City over in the WSL. And number two is, what does this mean? Does it mean anything for the NWSL and where the NWSL is headed? I think this is a fantastic signing for Manchester City. Putting my bias aside, it's a fantastic signing for Manchester City. Frankly, they needed help in the back line, very vocal, organizing, calming presence to bring to the back line. And also having played, obviously, with Sam Mewis, who will be playing right in front of her, I think it's an easy slot in for Manchester City. And I think we'll see her getting a lot of minutes pretty quickly.
On the kind of other side, and it's like with absolutely, like I agree with you to a sort of certain extent. So you've signed Sam Mewis, you've signed Rose Lavelle, you've brought in Chloe Kelly. You've already had Ellen White, so you've just like brought in Chloe Kelly as an extra. You already had a growing and talented Lauren Hemp, which was somebody going in the right direction. And then you've always got the backups of like legendary Jill Scott and like people like that you can always bring off. And then let's throw into the mix Georgia Stanway. So you're like looking across this squad going, you have all the talent, then you bring back the world's best right back and you bring back Greenwood from Lyon. And so you're looking at this squad going, yeah, you've got it all. But actually, I think gelling was their number one problem for a lot of the season. And today they won 7-0, and it was the most comfortable thing that I've watched in a long time. But they won 7-0 because the gelling is happening. They're starting to gel. Two of their first starting lineup in major games were brand new defenders that had just come back to the club. So there's like a lot of work that needs to be done to gel those four players together. However, on the other side, Dahlkemper is arguably one of the best players and under talked about players in the US Women's national team. So you're never going to complain about when she joined your squad, are you? I wonder, part of me wonders if Horton will be a bit concerned. Morgan is, a real talent, and she's got to be the first name on the team sheet when she arrives. She's got to be. She has to be.
If you sign, yeah, she has to be. They've basically put themselves in the situation where she has to be number one on the team sheet if they make that signing at this point in the season. It would be absolutely absurd for them to bring her over and then put her on the bench.
For major games, you'd imagine their lineup would be Lucy Bronze at right back, Steph Horton at centre back, and then you'd imagine Dahlkemper, and then you'd imagine Alex Greenwood. Two Champions League winners that have just won the Champions League, a World Cup winner, and the England captain as your back four. Absolutely no excuses, to be honest. Like that on paper, that's just absolutely terrifying. I think a lot's been said over the last season about Manchester City performances, but they sit in fourth, played 10. If they win the next fixture, they're back in the mix, and they still need to meet Man United and Chelsea again. So with a bolstered squad, this could see them really take on the league and potentially go for it. So how did I feel when I saw she's coming to England? You know how I felt because I text you. I was like, as if she's going to be around Manchester. I'm like, oh, swooning. And just to end, guys, we obviously did a couple of polls. I didn't do the third poll, but we'll do it this week, which was the best moment of 2020. But the best player for club for 2020 went to Tobin Heath, which seems kind of apt for today because she was so missed. It felt, although she's brilliant and she obviously was fantastic for her club, Tobin Heath actually only played between maybe October time and December of 2020, whereas Rachel Daly played over 2 continents, captained a team, won a trophy, came back, smashed up the WSL, and then popped back to America for a little lie down.
Today that she was very missed. Very, very missed.
She was very missed, so I will give them that. But I think there's a lot of Manchester United and US Women's national team fans that may have been involved in this vote. And then to prove that they were involved in this vote, the game of 2020 went with 47% of the vote to Manchester United versus Manchester City in November. It did kind of have it all, like electric goals, the comeback. But I know you're shaking your head because you want USA to win.
Well, this is, I think, hey, I voted Rachel Daly over Tobin Heath. I'm not going to lie. True. I did sneakily vote in these polls. I wasn't trying to hide it. I did come clean to you, Helen, when I did vote. I voted for Rachel Daly. I did not vote for Manchester United, Manchester City. This was the one I felt was a little unfair. I thought it was the Challenge Cup. Really should have taken it away.
That's what I voted for in my little sneaky vote.
You know, it is what it is.
You can't have everything. So our winners weren't your winners, but you know, this is the whole point of social media. It's to have an opinion, but not to be horrible to each other. And I would like to promote, this is not an opportunity for us to call you all idiots. But that's how I feel. If I feel like you're idiots, I feel like you're idiots, and there's not much that I can do about that.
Well, I have to be nice to the United fans because I'm really close to hopping on their bandwagon, and I need them to let me in.
I'm really sensing that. Let's wrap it up for today, though. This has been the WOSO Show. Check us out on socials at the WOSO Show. I'm Helen.
I've been Sarah.
You said I've been! Yay! I'm winning you over. I said I'm Helen, and you said
I know.
We'll get used to this lingo. See you soon. Bye.